For question 5a, the whole thing is testing on the is testing on the shape called prism. So if you recall, prism is it can be any shape. It can come in a lot of shapes. So for the volume, it will always be dependent on the cross section. So you will be dependent on the area of the cross section, then you multiply by the height or length of the prism. So because of this, it's very important that you can identify the cross section. So in this question, the cross section is actually a semicircle. So the cross section is a semicircle. So in a way, it's half a cylinder also, or you can see it as a prism. Okay. So anyway, I choose to see it as a prism. Okay. And then from here, if I want to calculate the volume, it will just be the semicircle multiplied by the height. So that's quite easy. So semicircle is half pi r squared. So most of you should be okay with the volume. So it is a surface area that is difficult. I will show you using the prism for surface area formula first. And subsequently, if you are not using that, how will you be approaching it? So if you are not using that, so later on we'll talk about it first. Okay, so in this case, right, if I see it as a prism, according to the prism formula, so this is the prism surface area formula. So there are two things that's needed. I will need the area of the cross section, which in this case is the semicircle. I will also need the perimeter of the cross section. So as long as I have these two components, I'll be able to find the prism surface area. So I'm going to try in this way. So this one will be the area of the cross section. So that will be the semicircle. And then I'm going to do the perimeter. So how am I going to do the perimeter? The perimeter will be the circumference and the 7 centimeter. So perimeter means the edges of the cross section. So there are two edges. One will be the semi-circumference. So circumference is 2 pi r. So you must remember to do a half on it. And then you add the 7. So this part is the perimeter part. So if I apply the formula directly, it's quite easy to get the answer. So if you take a look, I try to work out in terms of pi, and eventually I press out the value of pi. So in case the question asks you to leave it in terms of pi, you can just leave it in this format. Okay, so I am doing the whole question based on the idea of prism. Then what about if, let's say, I am going to, so another method, of course, for some of you, if you think of it as a half the cylinder. So if you think of it as half a cylinder, you will do a full cylinder first. Okay, you will do a full cylinder first, and then you divide by 2. So if you are doing a full cylinder, that means it will be pi r squared times that. It will eventually give you the same volume as well. Okay, but the surface area will be slightly tricky. You cannot halve the surface area of a prism because surface area is basically how much area is being exposed. So if you are not doing the prism formula, then you should see this as a rectangle. You should be able to visualize this as a rectangle. So the rectangle is 7 times 16. And you should also visualize this part as a big piece of rectangle as well. So you should visualize it as a big piece of rectangle. So imagine you unroll it. So it's something like this. Okay, I try to show you. So it's something like I'm using rough paper. So it's something like this. Okay, so if you flatten it, it will become a rectangle. Okay, so for the big piece of rectangle in this case, the length will be the semi circumference, and then the height will be 16. Okay, and of course your surface area will include the two semicircle which become a full circle. So if you're not doing the prism formula, then you got to add piece by piece. So you end up adding two rectangle. You end up adding two rectangle with two semicircle. So that should also give you the same answer. But for this question, I choose to see it as a prism. So even though the description is half cylinder.